Well, good morning and welcome to Vinery. It's a pleasure to have you here today on such a beautiful morning and such a big lineup of people to come to see us. We really appreciate that. I know that there's a lot of parades on and you'll be keen to get up and moving, so we'll get on with this and get through it for you. But nevertheless, we will be here. You're very welcome to stay after the parade and enjoy some more of the breakfast. And you want to talk to any of our team, and if you want to have a look at the farm or come back down and have a look at the Stallions or anything, you're very welcome. I'm very proud of our lineup of Stallions we've got to show you today. Obviously led by the ever young More Than Ready, doing a wonderful job. He's back again and looks better than ever. A good group of young proven horses, but also a very exciting group of young emerging Stallions. I'd like to acknowledge the Vinery team who have put so much effort into today to have the place and the horses and present it here for you. They've taken such great pride in this farm for the care of their horses and also the history of the farm. The farm has got a phenomenal history. As your buildings behind you are all back early 1800s. It's original Segino settlement that was 20,000 acres, took up this whole valley, including where the farms of Arrowfield, Turunga and Kiora are now. So the horses that have been produced out of this area is amazing. Vinery today has got quite a unique partnership of very active, influential owners. They're great supporters of the farm, the Stallions, and race a lot of horses, so great follow-up to this farm and the Stallions that stand. I'd also like to acknowledge the partners we have in our Stallions who support the Stallions so well, give them every opportunity and be part of it all. Also our clients, our long-standing clients who are in here year in, year out, that certainly support us so well too. The partners of Vinery have a lot, and their clients have got a collectively big group of mares, so it's very important the Stallions we stand. Very personal about the Stallions we choose. They've got to be important to the produce record of our mares, and we believe that ones we got here are doing such a good job. Without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Adam White, our bloodstock manager, who will take you through the Stallions, and I certainly hope you enjoy the parade today.
Still on. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Well, I have the pleasure once again this morning to introduce each of the Stallions to you. So without further ado, we will bring out our first horse for the morning. And this is pretty much where it all started for Vinery. Of course, this is our foundation Stallion here in More Than Ready. He started off with a bang. He was champion first season sire in 2004 and 2005. Last year when he came back to Australia, he actually set a record for shuttle seasons. It was his 16th consecutive season. I think the next best was Daniel Dancer, who did 15. And this year is his 17th season. So it's fair to say that there's no stallion in the world with more frequent flyer points than this horse. He's now up to 173 individual stakes winners. 19 of these are Group 1 winners. There's only been 15 stallions in the world to sire 150 plus stakes winners. He is one of 3 active horses in amongst that group. He's 7th on that list. He's actually equal with his own sire, Southern Halo, who also has 173 stakes winners. And last year, when Centre Pivot became his 150th stakes winner, he was the 4th youngest horse to achieve that 150 milestone. As I mentioned, he was champion first season sire. He's been a multiple champion sire since. He's been champion 2-year-old sire here in Australia twice. He's the only stallion in the world to be champion 2-year-old sire in Australia and America. And there's no slowing him down. In 2016 was actually his best year. He had 22 individual stakes winners. As you can see, he's in magnificent order at the age of 20. He looks fantastic. He's just got back from America, having covered 118 mares. 111 of these were in foal. I'm not sure what happened to the other 7, but obviously didn't have a personality he liked. I think his longevity as a stallion is a testament to the stallion he's been in both hemispheres. You know, it's very rare to find a stallion that can do it in both hemispheres like this horse. And if you look at his results are pretty much mirrored here in Australia and in the Northern Hemisphere. Almost the same amount of winners, stakes winners, prize money won. It's quite incredible. Of course, as I mentioned, he's been a multiple champion 2-year-old sire. He's had 65 individual 2-year-old stakes winners, 2 Golden Slipper winners, a Blue Diamond winner, 2 Champagne Stakes winners, a Sire's Produce winner. But he's been such a versatile stallion as well. He's got Group 1 winning sprinters like Perfectly Ready and Regally Ready, who won a Breeders' Cup sprint, Group 1 milers, and multiple Derby winners. He's had 5 Derby winners around Australia, 2 VRC Derby winners, including last year's Prized Icon, last year's Queensland Derby winner in Eagles Way, and multiple Oaks winners like New Zealand Oaks winner More Than Sacred. He stands this year at 60,000 plus GST, terrific value for a horse with his record. And he's now established as a sire of sires and a terrific broodmare sire. Thank you, Dwayne. Of course, his son, Sebring, a terrific stallion in this country, Perfectly Ready, has been a former champion first season sire in New Zealand. And in 2017, it was probably one of his best years in the sale ring. He's topped 3 sales around here in Australia this year, including the Magic Million sale at 1.3 million and the Inglis Great Southern Weanling sale at 310,000. He's had 2 horses in America this year made 1.1 and 1 million, a colt and a filly respectively. So we've talked about what he's done for the industry, and here's one of his sons in Pluck, a horse that's doing a terrific job for the sire line. Pluck was trained by Todd Pletcher, who trained his father More Than Ready, and he reminded him so much of his father. He was a very good 2-year-old. He was a multiple group winner on turf. And we all saw Winx's fantastic win last week when she missed the kick and won in terrific fashion. Well, if you've ever seen this horse's Breeders' Cup win, it's a very similar win. By no means am I saying he's a Winx, but it was an incredible win. He virtually fell out of the gates. His nose hit the turf. Leaving the first turn, a horse slipped over in front of him. He had to veer right, and that left him a good 10 lengths last. Rounding the turn, he virtually weaved his way through the field and won in spectacular fashion. It's well worth a watch. He retired here at Vinery in 2012, and his progeny have just turned 4. As I said, he's doing a terrific job. He had 2 good group winners last year. The Tony McAvoy trained Aspect won the Maribyrnong Plate in the spring, and the Darren Weir trained Mongolian Wolf won the Frank Packer Plate in Sydney. Both those horses contested Group 1 races during the year. And most importantly, this horse is generating a lot of interest from Asia. He had a couple of very good winners in Hong Kong in late June in Jade Theatre and Win Win Ruby. And around that time, he had a 2-year-old come out, won its first start here in New South Wales by 5 lengths called Rossa.All. And Connections turned down an offer of $1 million for that horse from Hong Kong. So as I said, More Than Ready's been a great sire of sires. They do train on the More Than Readies, and we really believe the stock of this horse will do the same. He stands this season at 9,000 plus GST, and he's really a horse that offers two really good examples of, that you can use him for. He's a great horse to be breeding to race for now, and you can certainly take the stock to the sales and get many times your service fee back. As you can see, he's that lovely dark brown colour the Halo line is very much renowned for. He gets a lot of stock that colour, so they're very easily turned out at the sales. Thank you, Brad. He's got a wonderful female pedigree. His first 3 dams are all Group 1 performers. And I think between them, they've had 26 to the races, 23 winners, 12 individual stakes winners, and 3 Group 1 winners. So he's a horse that very similar to More Than Ready. More Than Ready started at a very similar level. So those breeders that used More Than Ready in the early days certainly benefited from using a horse like that. Similar horse that we think represents terrific value this year is Casino Prince. And the last couple of seasons, this horse has done a terrific job. In the last 2 seasons, he's sired over 100 winners in each season. Now, there's only been 9 active stallions in the country the last 2 years that have sired 100+ winners. And Casino Prince is the only horse that stands under 25,000 amongst this group. You've got 7 of them that stand for 60,000 plus, a Choisir who stands for 27, and this horse who stands at a very moderate 10,000 plus GST. He was a very good 2-year-old. He was a group winner, having won the Skyline Stakes in Sydney. He went down to Melbourne as a 3-year-old. He won the Alistair Clark Stakes at Moonee Valley. And then he trained on as a 4-year-old to win the Group 1 Chipping Norton Stakes over a mile. He started his stud career with a bang. He was champion first season sire. He backed that up as being champion second season sire. Of course, he got a champion in his first year in All Too Hard. And fellow Group 1 winner Escardo, who won the South Australian Derby. He's now up to 15 individual stakes winners, 5 of these coming this year. And they do have a tendency to train on. He's the sire of horses like Hooked, who's won 4 Group races. He's got Mighty Lucky, a 5-time stakes winner. Escardo won stakes races from the ages 3, 4 and 5. And he's had a very good horse in Singapore this year called Limbs Cruiser, who won the Singapore Group 1 Lion City Cup. He's a son of former champion Australian sire in Flying Spur, out of the very good producing mare Lady Capel. She had 7 foals to race, all winners, and 4 of them are stakes winners. His yearlings have sold very well this year. He's a real bread and butter type horse now. They've sold up to 180,000. So again, you can breed to a horse like this for 10,000 plus GST and get a good return on your money. Thanks, Brad. But again, a horse that stands for that sort of money. He's a great horse to be breeding to race from. As I said, he's had 100 plus winners the last 2 seasons, and he's ideal for that type of thing. We'll start to get into more of our proven brigade now, and the next horse out is probably one of our most popular horses here at Vinery with visitors. Whenever we get visitors to the farm, they just love seeing this horse. And this is Testa Rossa. Of course, he had almost a cult following when he was racing. He was a very talented 2-year-old. He won the Magic Millions as a 2-year-old. He won the VRC Sires Group 1 as a 2-year-old. Of course, as a 3-year-old, he won the Vic Health Cup against older horses in the spring. We all remember that fantastic Caulfield Guineas when he and Redout's Choice virtually went head and head all the way up the straight. Redout's Choice just getting him by a nose. In the autumn, as a 3-year-old, he returned to again defeat older horses in the Lightning Stakes in a tick over 56 seconds. He won the Futurity in the autumn. He looks like he could go to the races again. As a 4-year-old in the spring, he won the Vic Health Cup over a mile, carrying 59 on a heavy track from barrier 16. He was just a super racehorse. But very rarely do you see those horses that can win a Group 1 race at 2, 3 and 4. So he's very consistent and reliable as a stallion, as a racehorse, and that's what he's doing as a stallion. They're very consistent reliable racehorses. He has a very high percentage winners to runners of 74%. He's got his best horse, Hortensia, a multiple Group 1 winner around the world. She won Group 1 races here in Australia, Dubai and England. So he's now up to 62 individual stakes winners, incredibly in 9 different countries, including the USA, England, France and Dubai. His success over Australia is very widespread. He has group winners in Melbourne, Sydney, Perth, Brisbane and Adelaide. He's a very versatile stallion. Of course, he is also the sire of another Group 1 sprinter in Rossa.All, and he has a Derby winner in Testa. He's the second horse just to win the Magic Millions and sire the winner of the Magic Millions when Unencumbered won the race in 2004. With progeny earnings of in excess of 77 million, Testarossa certainly represents terrific value at 15,000 plus GST.
Vinery, the home of All Too Hard. All Too Hard is the only 3-year-old to win the Guineas.
All Too Hard's grabbed him, and All Too Hard has won it.
CF.All.
All Too Hard gobbles him up. The 3-year-old hits the lead, draws away.
Futurity.
The 3-year-old has a dazzling turn of foot today. Sprints away. All Too Hard won it by 3 lengths.
And all-age stakes.
All Too Hard is thundering up the centre.
All Too Hard, Australia's 3-year-old champion at home, is Vinery.
Another horse that had a very large following on the racetrack is our next horse out, and that is All Too Hard. He's a horse that we're extremely excited about. We have been since his first foals started arriving, since his first yearling started selling, and now for what they're starting to do on the racetrack. He, of course, is Black Caviar's little half-brother. He was a headline horse in his own right from a very young age. He topped the Sydney Easter sales at just a tick over $1 million. He didn't take long to show his true ability on the racetrack. He won on debut down the Flemington Straight at stakes level at his very first start and went on to be a dual Group 2 winner as a 2-year-old both in Victoria and New South Wales. Of course, as a 3-year-old, he really hit his straps. He won a very memorable Caulfield Guineas defeating Piero, was also second in the Cox Plate against older horses. And then in the autumn of his 3-year-old career, he had 3 starts for 3 Group 1 wins. He won the CF4, the Futurity, and then back up to Sydney for the all-age stakes, winning that. Of course, he was crowned champion 3-year-old of his year. He was second in the Horse of the Year to his big half-sister, Black Caviar. And in his first 4 seasons, he's averaged around 173 mares. In his first year on the racetrack with his progeny, he finished with 11 individual 2-year-old winners. That is equal to your song in Australasia for the year. And over a dozen of them actually raced in stakes company, which is a great sign. And this included Curdled, who won a listed race in Brisbane, Mystic Empire, who was defeated a nose in the Group 3 Widden Stakes, and All Too Huang, who was also beaten a nose in the Group 2 Champagne Stakes in Brisbane. There are a number of other first start horses that have won very impressively that look to have a bright future. Horses like the Mighty Fed, Abero, who is trained by Matt Laurie, won very impressively at Sandown 10 days ago. He looks a real 3-year-old of the future. And All Too Royal for the Kieran Maher stable. Also, Robert Smurden had a first starter win very impressively during the week called Super Hard. He looks to have a very bright future. The one thing trainers do comment about the progeny of this horse is their fantastic attitudes, which is probably why over 46 of his yearlings this year sold for in excess of $100,000 and selling up to $600,000. We often compare the first year horses against each other, but what I find really interesting is when you compare a horse like this with other really good sires and what they've done with their 2-year-old crop. For instance, All Too Hard had more 2-year-old winners this year than Longrow, Redout's Choice, Schwarzia and Medaglia d'Oro. And he finished a spot ahead of Written Tycoon, who was the champion 2-year-old sire of last year. So for this reason, you know, when he's in amongst those quality of stallions and doing as good a job with his 2-year-old crop, we think the future is very bright for a horse like this. All Too Hard, he stands for $40,000 this year. and I think this year is a terrific year to be going to him. There is an influx of first-year horses standing this year, so fast forward in 3 years when you're selling the progeny of All Too Hard, and to think what he might be doing at that stage in amongst the first-year horses, it's a terrific year to go to him.
Press statement in front of Sagaron, close to home end. Press statement. The gun 3-year-old edging clear of the Hobart.
We now start to get into some of the younger brigade of our stallion roster, and the first of these is dual Group 1 winner Press Statement. He retired to last season as the only colt to win a Group 1 at 2 and 3. He was actually undefeated as a 2-year-old. After impressive wins at Canterbury and Rose Hill in his first 2 starts, the Chris Wallace stable quickly identified that he was a horse of great talent and elevated him to Group 1 company in the JJ Atkins Stakes in Brisbane. He duly won that, giving him 3 starts for 3 wins as a 2-year-old. Vinery was lucky enough to buy into the horse at this point with some great partners in the China Horse Club and Raffles Racing and Kiora Stud. I think it was a great testament to this horse to what he did from that point, to race in Brisbane during their winter carnival, have a short break, and then return as a 3-year-old to win the Group 2 Hobartville Stakes in the early part of the spring, before heading down to Melbourne as a short price favourite for the Caulfield Guineas. Of course, in that Caulfield Guineas, he jumped to the front, he led all the way and won like a short price favourite ought to. Then in the autumn of his 3-year-old career, he was narrowly defied for being a dual Guineas winner, having beaten a nose in the Rose Hill Guineas behind Lee Romain. And he was also third to Champion Winks in the Group 1 George Ryder Stakes when he met older horses for the first time. It's incredible to think what he did as a racehorse in just 12 months of racing. From the time he entered this stallion barn to the time he had his first start was just a period of 12 months. So he became a dual Group 1 winner. He was voted champion 3-year-old colt in New South Wales just within 12 months of racing. He, of course, is a son of Hinchinbrook, who was champion first season sire, doing a terrific job. I believe he's a horse that's fully booked over there at Yarraman this year. And, of course, a member of the, being a grandson of Fastnet Rock, he comes from the Danehill sire line. From a very good mare in Captive Empress, she not only produced this horse, but she produced a horse called Press Day, who won the very same race, the JJ Atkins, as a 2-year-old. He covered a good book of mares in his first year last year. He covered 135, and he's got some great partners in him, shareholders like China Horse Club, of course, who he carried his colours in the races, Raffles Racing, Kiora Stud, and, of course, Vinery. He covered an outstanding book of mares in his first year. Raffles Racing sent him a mare called Give Me 5, who was a group winner in her own right, but also the mother of a horse called Colour Vision, who won the Royal Ascot Gold Cup. China Horse Club and Vinery have also sent him multiple stakes winning mares. And we're very, very happy with his foals. I know Linda Duckworth at Fairview's got a really nice filly on the ground already. Brian Nutt at Atunga has a half-sister to Group 1 winner Hawkspur that he's very happy with. And Mick Malone from Kitchwin Hills only rang me this morning to say he's got an absolute beauty out of a more than ready mare called Cupid Shuffle. So we've had 3 born this week. Extremely happy with the 3 we've had. We had a filly out of a Group 2 winning mare called Amberino. So as you can see, he's a very athletic horse, so you'd expect him to be getting very athletic foals. Thanks, Brad. He stands this season at 20,000 plus GST. Terrific horse, terrific value for a horse that was the racehorse he was. As you can see, he's a good, tall, scopy horse. So you'll put plenty of leg into those mares that need a little bit of leg over them. Another horse that retired to stud in Vinery last year is the next horse out, and I think what breeders mostly want in this country is speed. So when you breed an Oakley plate winning mare like River Dove to a Newmarket handicap winner in Exceed and Excel, then you're pretty much going to get a fast horse. And when you get a horse that looks like this, and this is Headwater, then you're just going to get plenty of speed. So Headwater was bred by Crestfield Stud. We fell in love with the horse when we spotted him at the Sydney Easter Yearling Sales. As you can see, he's got a great amount of quality. He was given to Team Hawks, and he didn't take long to show his ability at all. He won his very first start at Moonee Valley just 2 days after Christmas of his 2-year-old season. He was then sent up to Sydney. He brilliantly won the Group 2 Silver Slipper Stakes by 2.5 lengths. He was third in the Todman Slipper behind Vancouver. He ran a terrific race in the Golden Slipper, finishing 5th, just beaten 2 lengths by Vancouver. He came back as a spring 3-year-old. He was a very close 4th behind Buffering in the Group 1 Moir. And in the autumn as a 3-year-old, he won a stakes race down the Flemington Straight, defeating the quarterback who happened to win the Newmarket Handicap at his very next start. As I mentioned, he's by Exceed and Excel, a prolific sire of 2-year-olds, a sire that's had 136 individual stakes winners. And his first 3 dams are all stakes winners between 1,000 and 1,400 metres. As I mentioned, River Dove, she won the Oakley Plate. She is a daughter of Hurricane Sky, who set a track record in the Blue Diamond when he won that race. And Hurricane Sky, of course, is from the Star Kingdom sire line, which just boasts speed. As I mentioned, he covered his first season last year. We were a bit overwhelmed with the popularity of the horse, his good looks, and his great pedigree sold him. He ended up covering 167 individual mares. Many of those stakes winning or stakes producing mares. The mares in foal to him were very well sought after at the sales this year. They sold for 130, 120, 115, 110,000. And that's a great result for a horse that stands for 15,000 plus GST. As I said, I think he offers everything that breeders want. He's got a great speed pedigree. He was very fast himself. And as far as looks go, you can't get much better. He's a magnificent looking horse. Thanks, Brad. We've seen time and time again stallions similar to this that weren't Group 1 winners, but very fast, good-looking horses like Not a Single Doubt, I Am Invincible, Hinchinbrook, Written Tycoon, all wonderful stallions. A similar type of race horses like this. And he's a horse that we believe you could send any type of mare to. He's going to tidy up any of those mares that need a bit of quality, and if you do send him a mare with a lot of quality, then your chances of getting a very good foal are very high, I would have thought. So we get to the last horse in the parade this morning, and this is our new horse for 2017, and another horse that just boasts plenty of speed, and this is the powerhouse sprinter in Star Turn. He's got very much a speed pedigree. He's by Star Witness, who won the Blue Diamond. He also won the Coolmore as a 3-year-old Star Witness, so he was a very fast horse. His mother, Golden Delicious, was also a very fast mare. She won multiple stakes races. She won 5 stakes races all up from 1,000 to 1,400 metres, so he's got a terrific pedigree. He was bred by Widden Stud and offered at the Magic Million sale, and he was purchased by very much a renowned judge, Alan Bell, and we're lucky enough to have Alan here this morning, so I'll invite Alan up here. And first of all, I'd just like to ask Alan, What first attracted to you this horse when you first saw him as a yearling?
Well, good morning, everybody. I think when he walked out, I think I saw again what I saw at the yearling sales. His horse that just stood out of 800 yearlings at the Gold Coast, and he was the horse for me that year. Just the athleticism of him, his presence, just that electricity, which is just showing you a moment ago. Very busy, active sort of horse. Always been the same, whether it be at the races or anywhere else, and certainly at the sales. And I just thought he had so much energy and electricity that to go with the physique, that I thought he was a horse that had a great attitude to life, and really wanted to be getting on with things, and he certainly did.
And you've bought many great race horses over the time. Scalacci, Grand Army, Primacy, Deep Field all come to mind. But I guess the difference with this horse was that he was out so early. He won the Piero Plate in October of his 2-year-old year.
That's right. I always go for a horse with scope and a bit of leg under him, because I think the little butterball ones get run over once the bigger horses get matured. And so it's very unusual for me to have a horse out before Christmas as a 2-year-old. This horse was quite an exception for the type of horse I buy, because from the very moment he started to move along in the winter, rising to, John Hawkes was saying, you've got something a bit special here. And really, he's a horse that just showed from the very start that he was sound, tough, durable, classy, athletic, and he just went and did the business.
He returned. He raced in the best 2-year-old races of the season. Then he returned as a 3-year-old, and 12 months ago to the day, he won the Santa Monica in brilliant fashion, beating the Golden Slipper of that year in Capitalist, and that was a pretty amazing win also.
Well, that's right. It was a superb win in a race that is a stallion-making race. I mean, there's so many races now are touted as stallion-making races, and the jury's still out on a number of them, but you can't argue that the San Domenico doesn't turn up more than its fair share of very good stallions. So it was an important engagement for us. We knew we had to take on the champion 2-year-old, but there was a lot of confidence in the camp around this horse's capabilities, and certainly on the day it was a one-act affair. So it was very exciting to see him come back as a 3-year-old and really frank what he'd shown as a 2-year-old. The great thing about this horse's racing career, was that virtually every race he was set for, he turned up. He's never had a sore day, he never had a cough, he never had a day off or a bad blood or anything like that. He was just there, and he just turned up every time and danced every dance, and he continued to do that right through till he was retired.
Well, he certainly turned up at the next start when he went down to Melbourne and won the Scalacci Stakes, which must have been a big thrill for you, having raced Scalacci. But that day he met older horses for the first time, and I think Wayne Hawkes was quoted as saying he gave them a short cut inside. He just nailed them.
Yeah, he really dominated, and I think it's a sign of a stallion prospect that if you can go out at weight for age in the spring against the proven older horses, and if you look at the form through the Scalacci that day, it was all the top Group 1 form for the older horses in the sprint trip over the spring. So all the form horses were there, and he tailed them. So that was a great moment, and I think that was the time we really started to think seriously that we had the proper horse and the right horse that could go to stud and do a great job.
Well, he won that Scalacci Stakes in over 1100 in just a tick over a minute and 2, so a very quick time as well. But I think it was a terrific year of 3-year-olds that particular season, with Flying Artie and Extreme Choice. But I think one thing about this horse is that he was probably one of the most consistent horses amongst that crop, having met older horses in the Lightning and the Newmarket and the William Reid, where he was he was placed in all those sort of races.
Well, that's right. It was this exceptional year, probably a 1 in 10 year for colts, his generation. The colts really dominated. There wasn't a filly, within a stone of them, really. And there were 3 or 4 of them. They kept taking turns and kept duking it out, and they all turned up and raced themselves into a position where they could get off to stud. And this guy was right in the thick of that generation, and in fact, he was the one that stood up in the autumn as a 3-year-old when the others started to fade out of the scene. He was still there duking it out with the top older horses in the very best sprints in the land. And the thing about him is we never ducked a fight with him. He turned up and ran in all those important races, and he did us proud every time, never let us down. So it was a wonderful experience to race this horse. I think everybody wants to race a horse like this. And if his stock have the same sort of constitution and approach to life and ability and brilliance, then he's going to be an exciting sire, I think.
We've set his fee at 20,000 plus GST this year, and of course with looks like this and the speed pedigree he's got and the race record that he's got, he's generating a lot of interest, obviously. And Vinery, of course, will be supporting him with a good bunch of mares, and you'll be breeding a few mares to him yourself.
Certainly will. Bought a couple of stakes-winning mares, a few well-bred mares to go to him, and I have a great deal of faith in him. And of course, everybody does in their stallion, and that's nothing new. But this horse just has something special about him. He just has an X factor about him, and I think when you look into his pedigree and start delving into it, apart from being out of an absolutely gun race mare and by an exciting young sire, he has, I think, about 12 strains of Nasrallah, and I think that's where this electricity comes from. It's quite unique in today's stallion market to have that, to carry that kind of pedigree forward, and I think he's got a great chance to click with a lot of the well-populated divisions, in terms of broodmare sire strains. And I think if he does click with these mares, I think we might have a very good time.
Thanks, Alan. Well, that concludes the parade this morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks very much for attending, and I hope you enjoyed it. I hope we didn't baffle you too much with any stats, but enjoy the rest of the weekend. We'll invite you into the barn for a quick look at the horses if you wish. If you'd like to ask any questions, Peter, myself, Connor Phelan, or the new member of our team, Drew Irwin, are all here. And again, enjoy the rest of the weekend.